Life has a way of catching you off guard, making you question everything you thought was unshakable. I'm Sarah, a 34-year-old mother of two, and I've been married to Mark for nearly a decade. Our marriage has always been solid, or so I thought. We had our routines, our traditions, and our shared dreams of a future together. But sometimes, even the most solid of foundations can show cracks when tested, and that test came in the form of Mark's cousin, Alex. Alex is the epitome of charm and charisma. He's that guy who walks into a room and immediately owns it without even trying. He's tall, good-looking, and effortlessly confident. But more than that, he's family, Mark's closest cousin, practically a brother to him. They grew up together, shared every childhood secret, and leaned on each other through every trial. When Alex reached out to say he needed a place to crash for a couple of weeks while his apartment was being renovated, it was a no-brainer. Of course, he could stay with us. At first, everything was fine. Alex was great with our kids, playing video games with our son and helping our daughter with her school projects. He even pitched in around the house, fixing things that had been on Mark's to-do list for months. It felt like having an extra set of hands, and honestly, it was a bit of a relief. Mark's job had been demanding a lot more of his time lately, and having Alex around eased some of the burden. But as the days turned into weeks, I started noticing little things, moments that felt off. It was nothing overt, nothing you could put your finger on and say, "This is a problem." Just small things. The way Alex's eyes lingered a little too long when I walked into a room, or how he always seemed to find an excuse to be near me, offering to help with dinner or joining me for a morning coffee after Mark had already left for work. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Alex and I were sitting on the back patio. It was a warm night, the kind where the air feels thick and everything moves a little slower. We were drinking wine and talking about life, nothing too serious, just casual, lighthearted conversation. But as the night went on, the atmosphere shifted. The space between us felt charged, like an invisible thread was pulling us closer. I couldn't quite explain it, but I felt drawn to him in a way that made my heart race. "You know, Sarah," Alex said, his voice low and smooth. "You're really something. I've always admired how you handle everything, work, the kids, keeping this place running like clockwork. Mark's lucky to have you." I laughed it off, shrugging as I sipped my wine. "Thanks, Alex. But it's not that big of a deal. Just doing what I have to do." "No, seriously," he insisted, his eyes locking onto mine. "You're amazing. I've never met anyone like you." There was something in his gaze, something intense and sincere that made me feel exposed. It was the kind of look that said he saw me, not just as Mark's wife or the mother of his children, but as a woman. I felt my cheeks flush, a mix of flattery and discomfort washing over me. I told myself it was just Alex being Alex, always smooth and complimentary. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. As the night went on, I found myself laughing more, leaning into the conversation, enjoying the attention. It had been a while since I'd felt this seen, this appreciated. Mark was a good husband, but lately, with work and the kids, we'd been more like business partners than lovers. We barely had time to talk, let alone connect on any deeper level. And here was Alex, filling that void without me even realizing it. I tried to push those thoughts away, reminding myself that Alex was family, that he was here because he needed a place to stay, not because he was looking to complicate our lives. But every time I looked at him, I felt that pull, that undeniable attraction that was becoming harder and harder to ignore. The tipping point came one afternoon when Mark was at work and the kids were at school. I was in the kitchen, cleaning up from lunch, when Alex walked in, looking like he'd just finished a run. His shirt clung to his chest, and his hair was damp with sweat. He flashed me a grin, that same easy smile that always seemed to light up the room. "Hey, you," he said, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. "Mind if I crash here for a bit? It's way too hot outside." "Of course, go ahead," I replied, trying to sound casual as I wiped down the counter. But my heart was pounding, and I could feel the tension thickening in the air. Alex leaned against the counter, watching me. "You've been quiet today. Everything okay?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just tired, I guess. It's been a long week." He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "You do a lot, Sarah. More than anyone realizes. Sometimes I wonder if you ever get a break." I shrugged, trying to downplay it. "It's just life, you know? Everyone's got their stuff." "Still," he said, his voice softening, "you deserve more than just the day-to-day grind. You deserve to be happy." There was something in the way he said it, a weight to his words that sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could respond, he reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from my face, his touch lingering longer than it should have. My breath caught, and I took a step back, my mind racing. "Alex, we can't," I started, but my voice trailed off as he moved closer, his hand cupping my cheek. "I know," he whispered, his forehead resting against mine. "But I can't help it. I look at you and I see everything I've ever wanted but couldn't have." I should have pushed him away, should have told him to stop. But instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my heart pounding in my chest. It was like every rational thought flew out the window, leaving only the raw, undeniable attraction between us. And before I knew it, his lips were on mine, the kiss searing and urgent, like he'd been waiting forever for this moment. We pulled apart, both of us breathless, and I stared at him, my mind spinning. "What are we doing, Alex? This is wrong." "I know," he said, his voice strained. "But I can't pretend I don't feel this." I stepped back, reality crashing down around me. "We have to stop. This can't happen." Alex nodded, running a hand through his hair. "You're right. I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't mean to put you in this position." "It's not just you," I admitted, my voice shaking. "I felt it too. But we can't do this to Mark." For the next few days, the tension between us was palpable. Alex avoided being alone with me, and I did my best to focus on my family, trying to forget the kiss that had shaken me to my core. But every time I saw him, every time our eyes met, it was like a reminder of the line we'd crossed, the mistake we'd almost made. Mark didn't notice the change. He was too busy with work, coming home late and exhausted. I wanted to tell him, to confess everything and clear the air, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was terrified of what it would mean for our marriage, for our family. So I kept the secret, hoping it would fade with time. But secrets have a way of festering, of growing in the dark until they can no longer be contained. And as the days turned into weeks, I found myself slipping into a routine of avoidance and guilt, pretending that everything was fine when, deep down, I knew it was anything but. One evening, after Mark had gone to bed, I found Alex sitting on the back patio, staring out into the night. I hesitated for a moment, then joined him, the silence between us heavy with unspoken words. "We need to talk," I said finally, breaking the silence. Alex glanced at me, his expression guarded. "I know. I've been thinking about it a lot. I don't know how to make this right," I confessed, my voice trembling. "I can't lose my family over a mistake." He nodded, his gaze fixed on the ground. "I never wanted to cause any trouble. I care about you, Sarah, but I care about Mark too. He's my cousin, my family. I'd never want to hurt him." "I know," I said softly. "And that's why we have to stop. Whatever this is, it has to end." Alex looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of regret and longing. "I understand. I'll move out tomorrow. I think it's best if I give you guys some space." I nodded, my heart aching at the thought of him leaving, but knowing it was the right thing to do. "I think that's for the best." The next morning, Alex packed his bags and left without much fanfare. Mark was surprised but didn't press for details, and I was grateful for that. I watched Alex drive away, a mixture of relief and sadness washing over me. I knew we'd made the right choice, but it didn't make it any easier. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into repairing my marriage, focusing on the little things that had slipped through the cracks. Mark and I started spending more time together, finding our way back to each other, one step at a time. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I never told Mark about the kiss. Maybe I should have, but I couldn't bear the thought of hurting him like that. Instead, I chose to let it go, to move forward and focus on what mattered most, my family. I learned that sometimes, the biggest tests in life aren't about what happens to you, but how you choose to respond. Temptation is always going to be there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for a moment of weakness. But it's up to us to decide which path to take, to remember what's truly important and fight for it. Because at the end of the day, it's not about avoiding every mistake, it's about choosing the things that matter most, and holding on to them with everything you've got. So, if you ever find yourself at a crossroads, tempted by something that could destroy everything you've built, remember this: you have the power to choose. And sometimes, the right choice is the one that leads you back to the people you love. Because in the end, that's what really matters.